Yeah, my name is Lauren Russell, and I'm here in Nashville, Tennessee. I've been here almost 18 years, which is really wild. So I'm an LPC, which is a licensed professional counselor, and that has been a really wonderful doorway for me to be able to see a lot of people, especially, for a lot of us in our world where we kind of want the safety signal that says this is a person that knows what they're doing, and here's the alphabet soup behind their name that signifies that they've done the things. Granted, that's not the only way to like enter into like a really integrity filled way of practicing working with people. But so licensed professional counselor, trauma informed, addiction informed. I've been trained in EMDR and Hakomi method. I use a lot of parts work, internal family systems, and that's a modality that has been extremely helpful in all the areas I work in. So yeah, as far as like therapeutic work, like to call it therapy, that's limited to Tennessee, and I have a limited number of spots for that. But outside of that, as far as like integration coaching, whether that's psychedelic integration from an experience, whether that's integration after birth, death, or significant loss, or significant life change, it's how to integrate the wisdom and the lessons from that experience into your lived life. Coaching, I think, is the best catch-all word for like what the other pieces I do are. Well, I would say coaching and ceremonial or ritual work. Coaching is kind of like working with a person, helping them really gain tools and practice using them in like real world scenario, like their real life scenario. Because I mean, it's like, right, drop into a numinous experience, you come out and you still got to go buy groceries and take your kid to school and take your dog to the vet, and all of those things. And those things don't disappear. So it's how to weave. That's a lot of what the coaching integration work is. The ritual work and the ceremonial work is a deeper, less definable type of work, and that has been just from the teachings that I have received and been a part of for my entire life, but really focused in the last decade, whether it's wisdom keepers from other cultures or mentors I've had, where it's just really engaging in the art of human ritual, and helping people remember that and bring it back to their lives. So some of the work that I do, it'll be with like sound or breath or dance, and then incorporate maybe some plant tools, not necessarily psychedelic, but it's just like herbalism. I've been a self-taught herbalist for 20 years. And so bringing in, after a session or two with someone, to see like what's really going on, and then like creating something. It's a very creative act and I love it. But creating something that is tailored to like the ritual or the thing in their life that they're wanting to explore through ritual, whether it be memorializing a loss, or could be divorce. You want to go through a divorce, and we don't have a ritual for that in our world. And so how to really honor that and bring in elements from just different old ways. And there's something really powerful that happens. It feels like, most people report, it just feels like a remembering. It's like they step into this container, and it's like, I'm not bringing anything new. I'm just reintroducing things that wake up a small remembering in a person, enough to like create a spark of curiosity or openness towards, hey, there's something different here. We can experience life differently. We can be an architect. We are an architect in this life of our own internal and external experience.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Lauren, what you kind of hit on it a little bit, but ritual, it's like even hearing the word ritual is like, to some people it has unique connotations. So like, find it a little bit more.
Yeah.
You wouldn't mind.
Absolutely. So the word ritual, even at its root word, in like the word rite, like RITE, it is linked to the word for river. And so, the rites of passage is another way of it's a like similar root word as ritual. And it's these intentional actions that we take, that are meaningful. We get to create meaning from them. I mean, And the reality is we engage in ritual, whether we're aware of it or not. It's bringing the awareness to it and then letting us ourselves like be the co-creators with it, that makes it some like a container. I mean, for example, most people have a coffee ritual, whether they know it or not. It's like they get up and they make their coffee, or they go to their favorite coffee shop and they talk to the barista, and it's a ritual because it's something that is habitually built in, and it kind of helps mark a passage of time. Like the morning starts when this happens, or the day ends when I get into the bath or go to the gym. Like going to the gym can be a ritual for people. So we have rituals already in our lives, but I think when I talk about it in this way, it's helping people connect to a different type of ritual. Often it's more closely rooted to the earth and the land. And gosh, let me think if maybe y'all can help me like tease out this language too, because this is something I've thought about describing. It's like, and this is very related to a lot of these layers of experience, but there's kind of the matrix, so to speak, of our modern life. And it's just all the things we do, the traffic patterns we get into, the buildings we enter, the clothes we wear, the food we eat. And that's all fine. Like, okay, so that's it. That's constantly in flux. It's changing. And we are in like massive transformation with all of that right now. People questioning it, going through these awakenings, wondering like, why am I engaging in these patterns and rituals? Like, what is happening? What does this mean? And it's like deepening this witness. And so the ritual that I get into is like really dropping into the layer beneath that of just like, well, what are the things that have been pretty consistent across time, culture, civilization, millennia? And it is the patterns of the earth. It is the patterns of seasons, the patterns of the way, just the property of physics that nature tends to, just operate in without thought. It just does. Mm-hmm. Water just flows or falls. Fire just alchemizes and burns. It just does. And so through ritual, when we can drop into those intentional practices, we can start to see how we are connected to that and get to know a different, more authentic layer of ourselves, and get to really make more sovereign and autonomous decisions about how we engage in the other layers of the matrix, so to speak, without it just being rote habit, unthinking, unconscious, unaware habit. So I think that captures it.
Yeah.
Totally.
I mean, yeah, I can totally see what you're saying. There's like people all over waking up to different things, like why, questioning the food they eat, starting to feel some sort of like curiosity about the moon and the cycle. Mm-hmm. It's like, it's those types of things where working with someone like you to like kind of understand the meaning and the archetypal and indigenous context, or whatever you want to call it, like to bring some level of understanding, but more so to get into a place of like true embodiment and relationship with it, to kind of like discover that part of themselves, right? Because that's beautiful. And there's not like a cookie cutter way of approaching that. It's very much like exploring what's happening with that person and inviting them to kind of meet that and find unique, authentic ways to integrate that into their life. Does that feel fair?
Yes.
Yeah.
Totally fair. And that's kind of how I like why it's harder to define, because it's, I mean, I may be able to say, hey, we're going to do a fire ritual or a grief ritual, but to like take it to define it beyond that, then kind of takes away from, a person's like natural curiosity and invitation into it, and learning how to embody it for themselves rather than someone else telling them how it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
And I think so, like, I think that's something really unique to our culture and to a lot of the people waking up in like the global north is we have had such an individualized experience. Like the individual is put, it's just been part of our experience. The individual needs, wants, desires, autonomy is important over, the collective. And that's shifting. Like it's been shifting for a while. That language has really entered the field, but it's like we're really shifting, but we need a bridge to walk across. And so by creating these experiences that allow an individual to step into that experience and recognize kind of like where they fit into the collective through their own curiosity and observation. I think that to me, and this comes from my own experience of kind of what I've had to just discover through my own exploratory process of like why certain, like going into certain, for lack of a better word, containers, like that was just like, hey, here's how an indigenous practice, does it. And it was like, why does this feel appropriative? Or why does this feel, and it was like, I needed to know kind of like what the bridge between that is, like the why, like what is this doing? And so through my own exploration, I was able to find those thresholds within myself to then understand like, oh, here's why they have a collective practice. Here's why the collective practice is important and why it's helpful to like bring that back in to the bigger picture. And it also makes me think about, so as a, doing psychology work and learning about human development through that lens too of my training, it reminds me too of just the way we go from infancy, like we're born and we're in infancy and we're first learning to individualize. The moment we enter this world, we're separated from the body that carried us into this world. And we have to go into this place of going from like total, it is the collective. We're not even aware that there is anything but the collective in that little womb space. Oh shit, we're separate. We got to figure out how to breathe and cry and hope that the person around us interprets our cries correctly, that it's because we need food or whatever. And then we individualize, and then we learn to say words, and we like even grow even more and more separate and everything. And then there's a point in time in which we start to like look out into the world and our peer group again, and we start to want to be a part of the collective again. And so many people, I can tell you how many people, I would say the predominant traumas either happen in early childhood or in that pivotal, like, adolescent, teenage years, where it's like early, like 1 to 3 years old, kind of early stuff, or that place where we're like, wait a minute, I want to be a part of the collective, but the collective's offered to me or only this, so I have to really self-deny in order to be a part of this over here. And then you spend the next 20 years trying to deconstruct that. So there's a lot to speak to there.
No problem there. Really easy, really chill stuff, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Being human, it's so cute.
Yeah.
Okay, so you do work one-on-one with individuals in a variety of ways. Like Lauren showing up as the therapist is going to feel different than Lauren showing up as the person creating ceremony with you. Yes. Even though you're still the same person, right. Like sometimes people are ready for certain things or feel safe in certain like containers. So you do one-on-one work. And then we've been talking recently about how there's like so many things inside of you that you're just like ready to teach or to get down in like a guide or a course. So let's explore some of those things that have been like wanting to come out. And then, maybe there's something there we can do together as a group.
Yeah. So one thing that I've thought about would be helpful just to have like informationally out there is just what is telepathy? The telepathy tapes is like really, brought up so much of that. And every person I talk to about it, we all kind of were spoon fed some opinion about what telepathy was at an early age, whether that was be like, oh, it's all pseudoscience, blah, don't worry about it. Or, I would say that's a predominant lens. And this,
or it's like, or literally it's X-Men. It's like the first time hearing that is like from an X-Men reference, and then that's it. That's the,
that's the, it's like, oh, that's a fantasy. That's a comic book thing. Like, that's it. It's totally made up. End of story. But when you really, I think one of the first memory that this, experience of listening to telepathy tapes and getting more connected with y'all, the first memory that came to mind, I would think I was probably like, I don't know, 10 or 11 years old. And I would ride my bike to the library. And I loved like I don't even remember what the section it was, but it was all the weird stuff. And it was like this hardbound book about like these different pseudoscience things. And I remember the telepathy and telekinesis when I was just like, something in me was like, this has to be real. Like, there's no way this is just not real. I know. And it's like, and, you know, knowing too that there are, of course, there in every aspect of our world, there are going to be charlatans and people that take advantage. Like, that's a given. But that doesn't mean we have to throw it all out. So I really just want to do an overview of like kind of what is this thing that we're even talking about, and when did it start getting erased from our collective memory? When did it start getting kind of hijacked by this idea that it's like taboo, don't talk about it. If you suggest that it happens, it means that like you're totally discredited from your professional standing. When did that like happen, and why? And how far back do cultural references of this particular skill or way of being go? And just to kind of, you know, kind of dig through the hidden archives of history and be like, look, this is nothing new. We're just rediscovering it, and we're learning how to look at it through a lens that is open and receptive and curious rather than dismissive.
Mm-hmm.
So that's, yeah, curious, you know, oh, that's my dog. Yeah, curious what you think about that. I mean, I just know that that's something that would just be like really great to have out there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that would be interesting. You know, people are gonna come at this concept in a different way. Like, people are gonna want to like mentally try to understand it. People are gonna be like, no, I already believe, like, I want to practice it. Some people are gonna be like, I've been doing this my whole life. You know, so it's fun seeing all these different levels of consciousness, or like even experience of telepathy coming into the Patreon already. So it's like, I love it, actually. It's like, so what kind of containers can we create to make exploration available to the people here? Be able to meet people where they're at. You know, some people, it might feel weird for some people to be like, I don't know, jump into something where they're like practicing. They want to kind of like explore, like feel that sense of safety of like, oh wait, no, like, yeah, I remember feeling connection to plants when I was a kid, or like, yeah, I have this, like, I actually really feel like me and my cat are like, you know, understanding each other. So yeah, I think there totally could be something there to explore. And I don't know if it's like a guide or a course, or just like a series of explorations we do together as a group or something.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that brings up something really good, because so, you know, you mentioned a word you said a little while ago about embodiment. It's a buzzword, it's everywhere, but I also really love it because it's part of this. And then, you know, somatic work, another big word right now. But, you know, when people are like, how do I practice this? You know, I mean, I relate to the one where it's like, I've been experiencing this my whole life, but I haven't known who to talk to about it safely, how to talk about it, which has then, you know, therefore, for a lot of people, I think, showing up in the community, you don't get to practice it if you can't be open with it, if there isn't just like that safe platform that's like, yeah, I believe you that you've been experiencing things. Let's explore that without judgment. You know, it's like it creates like, I think the skill that may feel nascent right now is like it'll come into focus. But one thing that I know has been one thing that I would love to work with and offer is really helping people learn somatic tools, because somatic tools are what help us get into the subtle energy of our own body. And it's that subtle awareness that really allows us to be sensitive to the information coming in. I kind of see it like we're born into this world. I described this to someone earlier. We're born into this world. It's like squeaky clean antenna, and we're able to take it all in. And then we kind of just like, life gets it mucky, it gets it all, it just covers it up, and so the signal gets really blocked for a lot of us. For some people, like a lot of the folks in the telepathy tapes, I don't know if that ever happened. Like, I think there's just something different is happening to where the signal doesn't ever get blocked in some ways. It just is needed someone to believe in order to be heard, from what I can hear. But somatic practices help us, somatic practices, plant medicine work, a lot of, you know, therapeutic tools, clearing trauma energy from our body, energy work, massage, that all helps clear the antenna so the signal can come in clearer. whether that be just the signal of our own bodies and hearts, or the signal of the interconnectedness between us and other beings in the world. And sometimes that can be so overwhelming. I've talked to so many people, they're like, oh my gosh, so much is coming in now. What do I do with all this? How do I turn it off? How do I adjust the flow? And so it's tools to both open up and learn how to receive, but also then how to kind of regulate the flow so that you can still stay in this body and operate in this body, in this world.
What's an example of one of the tools? Like, is there a way to kind of in 5 minutes or less go through what something like that would look like?
I can describe like a practice I do, like with the dance, like opening dance. And then I know, Nicole, you experienced some of them when that workshop I did. But one that I do with dance a lot is this practice where people pair up, and without using verbal words, they will tell a story to each other using only their presence, like only their eyes, and but there's like verbal cues for me that I let someone know, like, okay, you person A, you're the receiver, person B, you're the storyteller. And then like I'll say, okay, now energetically swap roles. And just in that experience, you like it trains the body to like be aware of like the subtle experience of what it's like to hear a story through only witnessing with your eyes. And there's no way to describe what's happening, but you can describe your experience. Like the person receiving can be like, wow, I felt my heart just open up. Or all of a sudden the teller might be like, oh my gosh, all of a sudden tears started falling. And I felt the other person's, receptiveness, or I felt their guardedness even, and it's like without words, our body can start to pick up on that. And then the words can kind of help check the stories with one another. So words are great tools too, but they are not the end all be all of communication. So that's just one thing, communicating without words.
Yeah. I remember having that experience with you. Ashley and I did that couples somatic workshop. And it was like, I remember feeling like we communicated so clearly and so deeply and so intimately without words at all. And it was so energetic's not the right word. It was very profound experience, and it really brought us together in like a whole new way. And there's like, when I kind of replay that experience, there's a part of me that's like it's clearly energetic, but is it telepathic? Because there's some body language at play. It's like, I remember looking at her eyes, and it's just like, I could tell what the story was. Like, I could tell what she was communicating, I think. But again, like, you have to check that narrative. And to me, which, by the way, like, I don't think a lot of couples or people do this. So like that practice in and of itself is so beautiful. But like, I don't know, maybe a year after that or something, like we had an experience where for like 6 seconds, her consciousness was in my body. She saw herself out of my eyes, like sitting across the table from me, and she communicated. And just like, it happened. We weren't trying, we were anything. And she said for like 6 seconds, she was in my, I don't know, experience of myself. And it was just like a download of what it's like to be in my body. And she was just like weeping. She was like, I understand why you've been doing ketamine. I felt what it was like before and after. I experienced the neurodivergence in your brain, like just how fast and like big it is. And I just saw it. I even saw it. I was it. Like I experienced it. And I'm like so supportive of all the work that you've been doing. My God. And so then it's like, that felt like telepathy. And then it's like, I don't know how to ever like recreate that. So, and not that I have to, but it's like, but it happened. And I don't know that it would have happened without all of the somatic work that we'd been doing, individually and together. So I think all of that landscape feels really important to explore with this group of people. And, I love, you just have such wisdom with the soma, with the body to bring to people.
Yeah. And a question that you said, or it was kind of a statement or question about like, was it telepathy or not? And so that is kind of the big question, like, because there's no, right now, we don't have any like way to prove, I mean, there's the telepathy tapes is stepping into it, but there's still a quantum thing that's happening that we may not have the tools to measure now or for a while, if ever.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so it really is a deep, I mean, to use these words that is often in the podcast, like the deep faith and trust piece, that what you're experiencing is that. But here's the somatic piece, and here's what I find that, like, I know for me personally, and a lot of people has been so helpful for this, is it helps you really know your body so well and know your experience so well, so that when something like that does happen, you're so much more clear. Mm-hmm. It's so much more clear, and there's less confusion. Like, I know for me now, like, because of a lot of the deep, somatic work, all the work that I've just done, it's like I can feel so clearly the distinction between like the voice of chatter in my head versus the voice of kind of a very strong guide or some coming in, or kind of like a telepathic experience where I'm like connected in with someone.
Yeah.
They feel it's on a very subtle level. And so the somatic work helps us really deepen our subtle awareness so that we can recognize when that's happening and be able to differentiate between like even what's intuition and what's anxiety, like even between those two things.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. You said something earlier that I felt was important too, which was around the idea of like when you start having these higher states of consciousness, altered states of consciousness, you start experiencing like communication from guides or channeling or like whatever's happening that may feel different. That there's like a really significant impact on the nervous system. Mm-hmm. And I've experienced this too, so I'm talking from my own point of view, but like knowing how to work with that energy and how to discharge it and how to integrate it so it doesn't feel like multiple fragmented versions of yourself. Even that feels so huge. I think there's going to be a lot of people coming in the community. It's like, no, this like metaphysical stuff is happening. I'm just not feeling like okay. Like I don't feel okay in my body. Like I don't know how to regulate or like support myself with all this energy happening. What would you say to that?
So this is actually something I've been writing about too, and something that feels like a focused piece to come into to figure out the language too. So my thought with that, just from my gathered experience and the combination of clinical wisdom and the wisdom from the torchbearers, is that we've really lost touch with, for lack of a better phrase, the ability to engage in spiritual hygiene. Kind of in the same way that if we are like, eating every day, we brush our teeth every day, and, or we shower, and keep things clean, it's like stuff just builds up. That's just life. Same thing happens on an energetic level and an emotional level. And if there's a better word for spiritual, like on a transcendent level as well, spiritual works, I know for some circles, but I know that word is really like, it's charged in a lot of circles. So I'm, conscious of that. But it's just kind of like whatever is beyond. It's like there's the physical experience, the liminal experience, and then like beyond. And a lot of these experiences kind of like open us up to the beyond. And it was a funny thing someone said the other day, or we were talking about this experience, how like once you go into those worlds and engage with these guides and these energies and other people's energies coming in, it's like you go from driving a Prius to a starship or something, and you're still having to watch out for like meteors and asteroids, and you still got to like make sure everything's fueled up and cleaned up. It's like in that realm, we're still having to engage in the same types of things we are here, but in a different way. So I think somatic practices are a really helpful way to, or one way to really engage in like clearing our energy, whether that be through movement, dancing, fire. I think fire and water are really powerful elemental forces that can help shift the energy in our body. Like physical touch from other people can really help shift that when they're both people are conscientious of what's happening and one person is aware that they're helping like shift that from one person to the other, and then they know how to kind of discharge it. And the earth as well, just I think the elemental forces, and that's why a lot of these indigenous or aboriginal traditions have all of these practices, because they lived a long time and they kind of discovered that, okay, there are ways in which to keep the heart and the spirit. And even these words like clean feels weird, and like, but it's like, it's the same concept as like brushing your teeth. It doesn't make you a bad person because you have food on your teeth after you eat. And just, it's like, it doesn't make you a bad person if you have residual energy in your body just because you engaged with these things. It's like, you didn't do anything wrong. It's just, do you know how to clean yourself?
Yeah. Lauren, just to like add to the importance of what you're talking about, it's like I had a buddy who went through a mushroom journey, and he said that during and then after he was just shaking, right? A lot of energy movement. And I was like, yeah. And it wasn't like startling him. It wasn't making him that uncomfortable, but it was a new experience. And just by me being like, that's okay. That's just by being like, that's normal. You could tell, oh, right. Let alone the fact that there's like all these practices. I mean, I remember my first time, it's like when that starts happening to you, you're kind of like bracing for this thing. So to know that it's like a okay place to be in at all is like really, and like, we're animals on a certain level. It's just like there's chaos happening in the body, body keeps the score. Isn't that like a book or something? But it's just like, that rings so true. So yeah.
Totally. Like, this body is an instrument. It's a vehicle here. And if it's also the instrument that's receiving a lot of that energy and those signals. And I think once I started, it was like in my clinical practice, I got a lot of knowledge for here, and I got a lot of, some really good stuff for here, like how to help like clear certain layers of trauma. But when I started working more deeply with teachers from, like I have a teacher in Guatemala, a teacher in Brazil, and many elders and wisdom keepers, from the North Americas, and really started listening more deeply beyond just like, okay, you're cool, this feather, okay, cool, and then, or really listening more deeply to, like, I think there's a lot more that's finally coming to the surface from like England and Scotland and Ireland. A lot of those wisdom traditions that have been very, very pushed down for a long time. It's like finally coming back and learning the tools of the plants, the elements, the songs, the drum, just moving around a fire in a circle in community. There's some powerful work that happens there that helps clear our energy. And so one of the things that I really want to do is kind of demystify some of that. And again, that's that bridge, that's that invitation of like how to, because I get it, a lot of people may be like, oh, I don't want to step into a world that's not mine, but it is yours. That is your world. And here's how to kind of like, here's the bridge. Just take your time and like learn to be familiar with it and respectful and, honoring.
Yeah. Nice. This feels really good. I put out a poll this morning on the Patreon, and I was asking people, what they would like to explore virtually, like as a group.
Yeah.
And we're still getting results in, but so far it seems like far and large, like people want to explore energy and how to work with their own energy. And talking to Hindi earlier today, and she's like, she's such an amazing energy worker, and she has such a good like self Reiki practice that she's excited to bring to the table. But like this whole conversation is just like such another way into that. So I think we could explore our own energy and how to sense into it, how to allow, how to connect. Yeah, all those, like there's so many things that we can do together for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, I mean, I'm even wanting, just to talk about like the history of things and like bridging some language gaps and narratives, right? It's just like, not there's of course probably a 2.5 hour long movie that can be done about one of these topics, but it's just like even 60 seconds of information that's like scripted out, that's just like, hey, you didn't know this, but here it is, right? Just that type of information could be really valuable. So like exploring with you, Lauren, whether that's like written first and we turn it into a video, or just written, like the medium, I guess, is kind of the next kind of format that'll help structure some of that.
Yeah.
Right.
We can kind of, I think, take the details of that offline. I'm sensing that there's like, let's just get like a call on the books where we can start to explore together. And then maybe Lauren, at first it could be something as simple as like, we'll accept donations with a Venmo and have people give to you what they can for your time, and and kind of see how that plays out. And then simultaneously, if there is a guide or a course, something that's more in depth that we can create that lives on the Patreon for people 5 months from now who arrive and they're like, I'm ready to dive into this universe, like that exists. James can film things. We can like, I don't know, like I love interactivity. Like I think some sort of combination of self-guided, like there can be words, there can be prompts, but like also we can create experiences where we capture almost like mini documentary style to like show what a practice might look like. Or when James is referring to someone going on a journey and just like not knowing what to do with their energy, like we might even be able to capture moments like that if it's not too vulnerable for someone. So feel into like what would like bringing that to life in such an ideal way look like. And maybe it takes 3 to 6 months to make, but like we do it really well. I'm so open.
I'm really feeling it kind of filter in like what this could look like. Because James, when you said that, like, having it like the medium needs to be kind of digestible. Like it could be really dense and long. Yeah. And the reality is like that information is all already out there, but just kind of creating the little
micro versions.
I
mean, even a video where you're just like, with an iPhone, and you're just like, here's how to move the body in case you didn't know, right? Like as simple as that. Because like until I was in a scenario moving, I had not thought, like it was only a playful thing because I would be silly. It wasn't like a way to get energy out, So any of that content could be really quick and easy too, right? It doesn't have to be long form,
right? And it like it's got to be accessible, and that's the other part of like the weaving in right now is like this has got to be stuff people can book in their days with or fit into their lives, not add to the growing list of things that are already there. Like you're looking to like that's what integration is. It's like integrate. It's not creating a severance and then like totally having to like start from scratch. You can do that sometimes. That's what life does, but for most of us, coming into this awakening is not going to be that. It's going to be like, ooh, okay, I got to weave it in. So that's a really good thing.
And for a lot of people's awakening, it's going to be scrolling on Instagram and they hear one thing that then they think about 6 months later. And then it's just these micro moments. So
totally. Yeah. So making it really accessible. I mean, I love that. It's kind of, and I think sometimes those of us that have been walking in this realm for a while, or like I know my neurodivergency is like it's like can be a lot sometimes, and it's like just go back to ABC. Like before you you talk dissertations to people, like let's like if for my own sake too, it's like can I just go back to ABC? And like really like those are like the foundational pieces. If like how to move. Here's a way to open your shoulders if you're feeling really anxious. Here's a toning sound. I do a lot of like with vocal toning with my clients. Here's an just a sound to make to like really clear your body, just those really simple
things. That stuff is like ASMR gold. Totally. So like it serves so many purposes. Truly. It's just like that's the fun of this space, and like what we're talking about is like it can be very visual and auditory in order to get the point across of like, move the body, guys. That's all we're trying to get you to do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that.
And the key piece is like telling not necessarily the why in an academic way, but like the why in the intentional way of like anyone can like even stretch to do this all day, but it's like, hey, if you're doing this with the intention of opening your heart, or if you're doing this with the intention of, you know, clearing, like whatever it might be, or if you're jumping up and down with the intention of shaking off, totally. And something that would be good to explore.
And each one of those are 3 different videos. You know, it's like that's kind of the beauty of it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And even so, those are all things where you're consciously like, okay, let me do this to, I don't know, like dispel this or something. But there's even the version of like, this is happening to me and I don't know how to even sit with it, right? Because when I started doing somatic experiencing and stuff and doing psychedelic therapy, I remember like my body would do really weird things, like my teeth would chatter. And to James's point, just having a therapist be like, yeah, that's normal. Or like, can you allow that? And then I'd be like, oh, yeah, because normally like Nicole would stop that, you know, so it's like, what does it feel like to even allow what's happening to your body? Like the being able to support yourself, show up for yourself and hold yourself. Like, I think those are things that we're not always taught.
Yeah.
That's another universe to explore.
Yeah, that's definitely, and that's where kind of, you know, the other plant allies or different tools can really come into help in the same way that when we're babies, we need an attuned caregiver to be what like kind of wakes up the remembering or shows us what something is like before we learn how to do it ourselves. And for like from a trauma informed perspective, a lot of that early childhood stuff, we don't get the attuned caregiver that showed us those things. So we're walking around having our panic attacks, being like, I don't know how to hold myself because no one in a way that was really healthy. So that's where like the plant allies and like it's okay to use something outside of yourself with the intention of it being something that wakes up the thing in you so that you can do it yourself. I mean, it can be something as simple as like a meditation with chamomile tea and understanding kind of the properties of that plant and the way it's meant to like nurture and hold and soothe, or you know, there's these reeds that are like woven together that are kind of shaken around the body that are kind of used to like help clear an energy field, and just kind of it's wild. It's like I'll do it even to myself in moments of anxiety, and suddenly I'll feel like, okay, like what just happened there?
Yeah, I love that. That kind of reminded me of a few years ago when I was doing body work with Ramona. I remember crying one day. I was like, feeling so sad that I need another person to physically touch me to calm my nervous system. It's like, I've been trying, you know.
Yeah.
But it's like not the same. Like when someone touches you, it's not the same as when you touch them. And so anyway, I was like, I just feel sad that I have to pay someone to like touch me. And, you know, and she was just like, no, you're still taking care of you. Like you are coming here. Like we're doing this together. That's still you. And my capacity to really show up for myself. I mean, MDMA really helped me be able to like explore supporting myself in a physical way, which I've been able to access more through like rewiring my neural pathways. So I'm actually getting closer to it, so that, you know, I'm like experiencing that is possible. But anyway, there's such a universe here, right? Yeah.
The one thing that we may have talked about this before, but something that brings up too about like early childhood experiences around, you know, telepathic experiences or feeling connected to other energy, you know, is like, I know that when I was young, I had experiences where I just like, oh, like something is here, something's watching me. In the paradigm I was given, that was a scary thing. No one was explaining it to me. I wasn't from a lineage that talked about ancestors and how to connect with ancestors and that they're there and present in a way that had a mythology to surround it. It wasn't there. It was something totally different and full of fear. And so I had a lot of fear. And so it created a system of anxiety and fear in me. Had I had the wisdom I know now that, oh, you know what I know now is there were ancestral energies, guardians and protectors that were there watching out for me. And had I known that that's what I was interfacing with, or had the mythology to even understand it through that context, it would have reduced the amount of fear and anxiety that I've had. So now it's like, I know differently. I have a different mythos, a different way of engaging. And so even that, like creating part of the integration work for people is giving people a different mythos to operate in, that can be very healing to some of those early experiences.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Our time.
Yeah.
No, yeah, this is great. I think what we're landing on, right, is like, let's live in this somatic world for a little bit, correct? So, wonderful. So like, Lauren, what would be helpful for me even is like, send me resources that you have, or like anything, and then that'll just like, I can play with that, and then he even helps craft something that is like, here's some videos or something more that you're wanting to share and build out.
When you say send resources, go ahead, sorry.
No, I was just saying a lot of video opportunity with that too.
Awesome. That's what I would really love to offer, is like little short 3 to 5 minute, maybe even shorter than that. I don't know.
Yeah, they could be shorter than that. Yeah.
You're the one that time is not my medium.
Well, and that's where it's like, yeah, I guess to answer your
question, cut it down even, right? Yeah. Like if you give yourself the time that you need to do that, like he can make that a little more, I don't know, like approachable or something for social media. Or I honestly don't want you to overthink like trying to be a creator doing it the right way. I want you to bring what
just like give me,
you know, and then James can do something with it. Okay,
I can work with that, because that's not, I'm like, I don't want to have to think about that part of it. Like, here's the material I have, make it fit with what you need.
Perfect. That's exactly what I need. Yep.
Yeah. Okay, good.
Yeah.
Awesome. So let's do this. Come back to me with a date within the next couple of weeks, date and time that you feel like you could show up and begin this experience with the Patreon, and anyone else that you want to invite too. Feel free, like they can be on the call. And we'll set up a Venmo so people can donate to you. And then in the meantime, just start making things, get them over to James, and we will put them out there into the social media or Patreon, or even like I might even be able to work with like ChatGPT and start to build a course around it that you can go in, instead of having to like do the heavy lifting yourself, you can respond to and make more you and add your perspective and change some things to make it take form faster. And we've been doing a lot of the other thing too, we can talk more about, but like we've been doing these mini docs with people where we can just like really create the vibe and show what it like. You were talking about ceremony earlier, and I'm like, I've never seen Lauren actually create ceremony. You've talked about it a million times. Like it's totally like probably your favorite thing to do. I can feel
it is, but it's such a behind the curtain type of thing. It's so sacred. It's so sacred, and so it's like, but I think there's a level of it that can be very like video friendly.
Educational, right? It's like it's like if National Geographic was like, what are you doing? Right? It's just like to show the education component of it.
You get to decide what is comfortable, and it could be ceremony with yourself, it could be ceremony with someone who's comfortable being seen. And I don't know if you saw, like I filmed a ketamine journey.
I did,
and so like I mean that was a couple hours long. I didn't put the whole thing out there. Like what we chose to share was very limited, and I said yes to. So anyway, just options.
No, I love it. And I can feel it's very clear and distinct, like what feels good to share and what feels like it needs to stay sacred. Like it's very clear what that is. And I think there's definitely a lot that can be shared.
Awesome.
Amazing. Thank you. I'm glad we got to do this in real time. I feel like if I was just tuning in, I would have a good sense of who you are and what your energy feels like and what you can bring to the table. And I'd want to sign up for the call for what it's worth.
Cool. Awesome. Yeah. No, this was fun. And this is really helpful for me too, as I kind of like But I was just thinking about how like just going through such a transformation in the past year, and like I've had so many people, they're like, "Oh, I know you're a therapist, but what do you do? Like, what is it that the thing you do?" And I'm like, that's a really good thing. How do I define this thing that I do? Because it's I know what it is, and I know what when I show up into a container, I know how it comes out. But I'm like learning to define what that is, because it's like 40 years of just accumulated like wisdom that's just showing up, and and so this is a really helpful practice just to be able to do this. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, it's like even if you define it perfectly, right? Then it's like the language behind it, someone else is just not even going to understand. Like,
Right.
what are you talking about? You know, so it's just, just always. Yeah. So it's fun to refine it with you. Honestly.
Yeah.
I wanted to say too, I think a lot of people have tried therapy, and there's like a million different types of therapists and different experiences that people have. But I think it's really cool to be able to show a more multidimensional experience of someone who is clinically practicing. There's a level of like awareness and consciousness and like that you bring to the table that would give people a sense of freedom to talk about what is actually happening. And I remember, no judgment on a previous therapist of mine. She was wonderful and exactly what I needed for a while. But like, I remember the moment that I mentioned I started microdosing psilocybin, that I was like, oh, and that's the moment that she doesn't have the capacity to support that for me. And, and then I found Lindsay, and here we are. It's perfect. But just to even like give people a preview of, there are therapists who are awake and who are not gonna immediately like label you as, I don't know, schizophrenic or something, because you're hearing like you maybe heard a guide, and also have experience working with people experiencing schizophrenia, and which you do.
Oh my gosh, right. And there we got to shift the paradigm there too. It's like, yes, offer care, because it's for a lot of people, it is like very life disrupting, but also really shift why we even call it life disrupt. Like, and like, look at all the factors. That's a whole topic there. But you speak to something really good. It's like, we have to create, and especially for those of us who have like hold these licenses and have lit, like it's an interesting world. I have deep respect for it and a lot of ire for it. But for me to be able to come forward and say like, hey, yeah, guides, I am in a relationship with guides that aren't in this tangible world. And to also feel so secure and grounded in my own integrity and rootedness on this earth, and know that like we can talk about both. And we need the people that see us to know that they're safe to talk about both. Like, this is such a good, it's just needed to have this conversation.
Yeah. Yes. How would someone find someone like you in their own state? Like, do you know, right? Like,
yeah, that's like as a therapist.
As a therapist, yeah.
That's hard. I don't think there's a perfect system for that right now. I think it still takes quite a bit of investigative prowess on the part of the person seeking the therapist right now, because you can go, there's Psychology Today, which is the massive platform. You can look for a therapist anywhere. You can do searches, and some people have their SEO optimized to where the right people can find them. So there are like ways that people like me are trying to reach their audience, but like, even now my SEO is like 6 years out of date and I need it like updated, so it's like, there's things that there's barriers. So there's a lot of barriers to that right now. I think this is going to be like having funnels like this. This can go off record, but like I'm right now trying to kind of create a community in a similar way using like the platform Mighty Networks. And kind of for a similar thing, like people that offer things like this and bring in like guest therapists and teachers. And I want it to have like a nationwide impact so people can have more access, because there's definitely.
Can I ask a question? Is the network you're building, is that of therapists like you or people who are seeking?
It's called Weave. It's just an integration community. And it really I'm starting it as just like, It's just a way to get together for calls. And then like the intention would be to have like people that are doing integration work come in, and integration is not relegated to psychedelic experiences, but the target audience for this is going to be pretty specific. It's like for high impact, like highly motivated people who have done a lot of work. I mean, there's a very specific audience for this right now.
Gotcha. I know Jessa Reed at one point on her Patreon created a list of therapists who are awake and who support people through their own awakening. So that I can reach out to her and see if that's something that we can point to, or she's willing to share.
That's probably going to be the best way right now, is like organically people building these lists and spreading that information. I'm not aware currently of like a database that has that.
Yeah. Great. Awesome. Thank you for your time. I'm very excited.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah. Yes. Lauren, thank you. We'll be in touch. We'll just keep texting and making the whole thing happen.
Yeah.
Sounds really great. Yeah.
Date and time. Send it our way.
Got it written down.
Okay, perfect. All right. Bye.
Bye.